Join us on this 6 miles kayak from Ross-on-Wye to Kerne Bridge on the Wye River on the 10th of August 2023. Watch on to learn about the amazing scenery on this route, the quaint market town of Ross-on-Wye, the historic Goodrich Castle, and other useful information about this route and about kayaking the Wye River generally. Launching from Ross-on-Wye at about 2 p.m, we paddle downstream about 6 miles passing Goodrich Castle before landing just below Kerne Bridge at about 5:45 p.m. We're at the canoe launch in front of the Hope and Anchor pub in Ross-on-Wye. There's the pub behind us and we've parked in the car park here. There was a £5 fee that we paid in the Hope and Anchor pub to launch from here, so we're just departing from Ross-on-Wye. After departing from the launch at the Hope and Anchor at Ross, we decided to head upstream about a quarter of a mile. Before we paddle down towards Kerne Bridge, we're just going to head upstream a little bit. That's the rowing club at Ross-on-Wye over there on the right hand side. Going upstream we passed Ross-on-Wye Rowing Club. Here you get a good view upstream, looking up the magnificent Wye Valley in the direction of Hereford. Turning downstream, we paddled back towards Ross-on-Wye. Ross is a nice market town in Herefordshire which boasts the remains of a medieval castle and is well blessed with a number of small independent stores. We're just passing back past Ross Rowing Club. We would challenge them to a race, but those racing kayaks look like they may be a little bit too fast for us. Ross-on-Wye promotes itself as the birthplace of British tourism. In 1745, the rector Dr. John Egerton started taking boat trips down the valley from his rectory at Ross. We passed back by the launch point at the Hope and Anchor at Ross. We called back to the Hope and Anchor later that evening after the kayak for some food and a beer. We're just going to pass under Wilton Bridge, which is the main road bridge which comes into Ross from the southern side. Wilton Bridge and Ross-on-Wye slid away into the distance as we paddled downstream. It was a hot August day with a high of 26 degrees and light winds from the southeast. There's another big group of Canada geese there. This must be the goose capital of the Wye Valley, I think. There seem to be hundreds of them everywhere. The river was generally quite deep and flowed steadily, although occasionally we came to shallower, faster flowing sections where we had to decide quickly how we were going to negotiate the rapids. We passed more flocks of Canada geese who were obviously very used to kayakers because they totally ignored us other than the odd honk of disapproval. This was the maiden voyage for the Inuit X100 inflatable kayak that I'd bought that very morning at the Decathlon store at Cardiff while driving up to the Wye Valley. The Inuit X100 kayak we were using is an inflatable kayak which can accommodate 2 adults or 2 adults and a small child, although it can also be used as a large solo kayak. It has a high pressure drop stitch floor which inflates to 5 psi and which provides a firm base to sit on. As well as the hordes of geese, we also passed countless groups of swans on the river. It was starting to look like a scene from that famous Hitchcock film, The Birds. If the swans and geese had decided to turn upon us, then we wouldn't have stood a chance. We would suggest that you always check the water level of any river before you plan a kayak on it. We use the website River Levels UK, which has live readings for gauging stations along most rivers. You need to check that the water level is comfortably within the normal or green segment of the gauging station reading before you go. That large pole on the front deck of the kayak is not in fact a periscope, but is the invisible selfie stick for my Insta360 camera. There's a very proud mother duck over there with a very large brood of ducklings. Regarding logistics, there is a large pane display car park at Kerne Bridge and there's also a canoe launch just below the car park there. At Ross-on-Wye we had parked in the car park of the Hope and Anchor pub, which is right by the canoe launch there. We had to pay £5 to the Hope and Anchor to use their canoe launch, although parking was free. Alternatively, at Ross you can maybe park at the nearby Wye Street, although it's often busy. On this trip we had left a vehicle at either end of the route. If you only had one vehicle, then bus 34 runs quite regularly between Kerne Bridge and Ross-on-Wye. The timetable is linked below this video. Alternatively, there are a number of taxi companies in Ross-on-Wye and the surrounding area who you could book a taxi with. There are some great pubs on this route, such as the Inn on the Wye at Kerne Bridge or the Hope and Anchor at Ross-on-Wye. If though you can't wait to get to the pub to have a drink, then you can always have a cider on board the kayak, of course. This 6-mile kayak was part of the Kayak Crew's undertaking to kayak all of the Wye River from Glasbury all the way down to Chepstow. We've split the river up into trips of between about 6 miles up to about 12 miles. We've a blog page on our website and also a playlist on our YouTube channel of all of our Wye River trips. This map shows all of our trips on the Wye River all the way from Chepstow in the south up to Glasbury up in the north. We're about 4 miles along the route now with 2 miles to go. Archie seems to have picked up the pace of his paddling after having his cider. The Wye River is a magnificent kayaking river and we've really enjoyed all of the different scenery and terrain that we've paddled through on it. One issue to flag up with the Wye is that access points are few and far between. This route is good in that regard because there are easy access points at both Ross-on-Wye and at Kerne Bridge. About a mile upstream from Kerne Bridge, the turrets of the magnificent Goodrich Castle loomed up on the right-hand side. Goodrich Castle was constructed back in the 11th century, not long after the Norman conquest. The castle was rebuilt in the late 13th century by William de Valence, a French nobleman. Much of the castle was ruined in a siege of 1646 when parliamentarians attacked it during the English Civil War. The parliamentarians used a cannon called Roaring Meg to bombard the garrison into submission. We paddled, or should I say glided past Goodrich Castle, looking up in awe at the magnificent turrets. If we'd passed here 800 years before, then we'd have probably had arrows raining down on us from the castle. As we neared Kerne Bridge, we gave a wide berth to some fishermen who were on the right-hand side of the river. The salmon fishing season on the Wye River runs from the 3rd of March to the 17th of October. We found the fishermen on the Wye to be friendly enough, as long as you paddle around their fishing lines. The Ituit X100 kayak had fared pretty well on its maiden voyage and we were quite impressed with it. It's 4.1 meters long, but there is also a smaller yellow version which is about 3.7 meters long. We had used the yellow or smaller version before, and the advantage of that is that it can be used quite well as a solo kayak as well as a tandem kayak. When used as a tandem, we found the bluer or longer one to be much more roomy, which is better for us because we take so much junk with us. Kerne Bridge loomed into view downstream. Over on the right you can see the remains of Flansford Priory, which was an Augustinian priory founded in 1346. Kerne Bridge was built on the site of an ancient pre-Roman ford across the Wye River. It has some sentimental significance to me because it was here back in 2016 that I was first introduced to kayaking when we did a paddle from Kerne Bridge to Monmouth. Undeterred by the embarrassment of having put my wetsuit on back to front, I've never looked back since that first kayak and have been addicted to paddling ever since. The wily old Wye River had a final curveball to throw at us as we approached the landing stage just below Kerne Bridge. There was a final section of fast rapids which we had to negotiate by trying to avoid boulders underneath the water. Easier said than done when you often only see them last minute. If you enjoyed the video, then please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing by clicking on the left below to get updates of our reports and product review videos. Click on the right below to be taken to the playlist of videos of our trips along other sections of the Wye River. Don't forget to check out our website linked below. Happy paddling from the Kayak Crew.